So in this video, we're going to look at some of the restrictions of Chat GPT and how you can overcome those restrictions using the OpenAI API, which is a way of passing data to Chat GPT, but without using the Chat GPT interface. That gives you a more scalable solution so that you can pass data backwards and forwards rather than just the verbose results you kind of get from ChatGPT. So we'll have a quick run through that. So using ChatGPT here, if we ask ChatGPT a question, so let's say write me a 300-word article about how fast e-bikes can go. We've got a single instruction there. It's not particularly finessed, it's not particularly complex, and we're just going to get hopefully an article back. So it's starting by structuring it out using an introduction for our article. It's giving us a paragraph structure, and it's listing out how many words it's composing for each section. So what we'll get back is what we asked for, a 300-word article about e-bikes. If we use another example, I'll stop that generation, but let's say I was to ask it to write me a 300-word article about e-bikes in a fun tone of voice. So added a little bit more instruction to it, and you'll see it's changed the headlines to be a little bit more catchy and a little bit more informal with the main content. Again, we'll stop that. So this is great. We're going to get content back, but what's going to happen with this content is it's going to be quite mechanical, because it's a very the structure of what's come back and the format it comes back in is the same as you're going to get and everybody else is going to get when they ask for content of this type. So if we take some of this content and we'll run it into a plagiarism checker, and we'll just see what kind of score that comes back with. So if we copy and paste some of this content, and let's feed it into one of the many online tools for detecting AI content. So it's coming back with a score of 53%. So the tool is detecting that there's a fair bit of AI and not human written content. Now the reason for that is the limitation of ChatGPT is we're asking a single question and we're getting a single answer back. So we're asking, write us a 300-word article, it's giving us a 300-word article back. Everybody that's asking that question, and there are obviously many now, is getting a similar structure back every time. So amongst all the articles that are published online, amongst what ChatGPT does, the algorithms that are being used by Google, by Facebook, and by these testing tools, it's fairly easy for them to spot AI-generated content. That is one of the restrictions of ChatGPT. But with any content, you're trying to produce something for your website, for your blog, that is useful to the people reading it. There's no point producing content that is purely for search engines. You're trying to produce content that is actually going to be insightful for the people that are reading it. So let's look at how we might create some content in a more structured way that isn't going to look as AI generated and will be more useful to the people that are reading it. So what we have here is a standard Google Sheet. For anyone that doesn't know, Google Sheets is a online version of a bit like Excel, but it's web-based, so it's Google's alternative to Office 365. But behind the scenes of Google Sheets, there is a scripting language which you can tap into, which is one of the beauties of it being online. You can have scripts running in the background, scripts that run on a schedule, scripts that run when you perform a certain action, and you can do that with Docs, you can do it with Sheets and lots of other Google tools such as Google Ads. Now, the scripting language that sits behind a sheet, for example, allows you to take data from the cells in your sheet and do with it as you wish. So the scripting language behind this sheet, the script behind this sheet looks like this, and you can see it references the cells in the sheet, and it's sending the data off to Chat GPT. Now, the beauty of doing this, if we just look at an example, so in here we can put a title for an article. So let's say, how fast can an e-bike go? And then below it, we'll do a second one as well. So we'll say, how often should you service an e-bike? So we've got a couple of articles there. So think of that as a little bit like what we were passing to Chat GPT earlier. These are the article titles. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell my script to run. And the script that I just showed you in the background is now running, and it's passing this title here over to Chat GPT, and it's asking us to write. It's asking it to write the article. But rather than just saying write the article, what it's doing is introducing lots of other variables. So we've set these up here about the length, the keywords, what the focus is. And it's combining all that data together in what it passes over. You can see that ChatGPT was running here. We're waiting for the feedback. And now we've got an overview back from the API. So we've just asked it for some structure, some examples of headlines, and we've introduced some randomization as well. That's making it not so repetitive as you might get with the results from ChatGPT looking like everybody else's results. So this approach means that we've instantly got a more varied result than we would get using ChatGPT. And it also means we're structuring the article much like someone would if they were writing it by hand. So in the background, the script is now passing these headings over to ChatGPT via the API, and then it's getting data back and it's passing it backwards and forwards, and it's introducing lots of things like it's making sure there's some questions in there. It's making sure that we're covering the keywords that are mentioned in these headlines and some of the other things we've asked it to focus on producing this article. And that's all being done by the script in the background in what's being passed to ChatGPT. So you can almost imagine what's happening is it's like someone sat at ChatGPT asking it to write a headline, getting the headline back and saying, well, no, actually, can you change that headline a little bit and do this? And then it's getting the content back, and then it's manipulating that content further to introduce questions. And there's various things like this going on so that we end up, what we get back is a much more human written article. Of course, the article isn't human written, but we want to have a more user-friendly, a more human-readable form of article, and by passing the data backwards and forwards via the API gives us much more control about how we're asking ChatGPT to give us back. So, for example, something else that we're doing here, you can see the first draft of the article. We've introduced heading tags. So we're saying, look at the top of the article, can you wrap it in a H2 tag? Can you create some paragraph spacings around them? So all these elements here, we've got a list. Let's have a list in the article because, again, it makes it easier to read when it's appropriate. So we're introducing some HTML tags. Now, doing this via ChatGPT alone would require lots of backwards and forwards, lots of copying and pasting. There's probably within this script, there's 100 different receive data, send data back. So that would take a huge amount of time to do manually, which is the beauty of the API. You can script things and you can do them more in a more scalable way. And what we're looking at here is kind of static data. We put the headlines in here that we want, and then the data is being passed backwards and forwards with the API, and we're getting the data back. But what we could be doing is taking data from Google, for example. What's the popular search terms at the moment? What are people asking questions about on Twitter? What's the latest question on Reddit on a particular topic? And then we could automatically be populating these fields and generating answers, generating articles, generating content to publish on whatever platform we want based on live data. So it's a much more scalable solution than just asking Chat GPT a question. What we can also do with this is pass data to image generation tools. So we can ask it to generate an image based on the content of the article. So again, because we're using scripting, because we're using API, that doesn't need to be done manually. That can all be done as part of the process of using the API and passing the data backwards and forwards. Okay, so if we take a look at the completed article, so you'll see some of the other data that we've generated is title ideas, where we're looking at what would be a good title for the article based on the contents, based on the original keyword ideas, what might be a good URL for the article, and again, there's some randomization here so that it's not just taking the first answer. Page titles, the meta description, from an SEO perspective, what's going to be a good meta description, and then also looking at the FAQs, so wrapping schema data around the article so that when Google sees it, we've identified what are the questions that are being asked in the article, so how fast can an e-bike go, and that we're identifying it with the markup language as an answer, which improves your chances of this article appearing in the organic search results when somebody asks that question. So all these things will be really difficult to do with purely using Chat GPT. And this is kind of the beauty of the API. But it's not just restricted to something like this, which is just writing articles. There's lots of uses for it. So if you would like to look at this website, it's bikequack.co.uk. This is a testbed website of ours, which we're using purely to test the scripting that we demonstrated in this video. It's purely a testbed site. The content is completely generated using OpenAI, using the methods detailed in this video, where we're passing data backwards and forwards to generate that content. All of the images in this video are also AI generated. There's no actual real people in this content. It's all completely AI generated. So if we have a quick look at one of the articles, you'll see they've got good H1 tagged headings, H2 tagged subheadings. The paragraphs are neatly laid out. We've got bulleted lists. We've got bolds where appropriate. The keywords are used appropriately and consistently throughout the article. We're covering some topics that are related to the main keyword that we were intending, and we're also answering questions. So we've got questions in here and we've got the answers, and those are correctly tagged up using schema markup. That wouldn't be achievable with ChatGPT. That's only achievable by using scripting and by using the OpenAI. These articles on this site are each about 3,000 words, and generating about 500,000 words of content across the site probably took us about 30 minutes in total. All of this content is AI generated, as I say, and it purely is a test site to demonstrate what can be done. And we are working on ways now to automate this completely. So we're looking at live ways we can find good ideas for articles and have the script run those automatically, so that this becomes a completely autonomous website without any human interaction. There's lots of ways you can leverage the API, whether it's for writing articles, whether it's manipulating your website, whether it's for analyzing data, managing parts of your Google Ads campaign, your Facebook campaigns. And over the next 10 days, we'll be looking at all the stuff on this website, but also lots of other ways that you can manipulate data using OpenAI, and also how you can use Chat GPT in your strategy.